people might be asking, like, well, what bothers you about Halo, or what makes you sick of Halo now if you guys liked Infinite? Because so much of the conversation of negativity around Halo is Halo Infinite sucks, 343 sucks, Halo 343 hasn't put out a good Halo game in their entire career. You know, it's been 3 games in 10 years and it all sucks. And that's been kind of the conversation. But me and Josh don't feel that way. We loved Infinite. Josh and I both like Halo 4 and 5 for different reasons and similar reasons, and obviously have our complaints as well. But, like, so what is it? Why is it that you guys don't want to talk about Halo anymore? Why is it that you guys are fatigued on Halo? Why, if you're in the Discord, you'll see, specifically me, a lot of times I'll say stuff about Halo that's like, wow, I didn't know Brian from Secret Icon would say such negative stuff about Halo. What the heck? What happened to him? Well, it's a few things, right? It's a few things in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. In front of the scenes, the way that every Halo game has been so criticized. I mean, even when Bungie had it, but of course more so with 343. Constantly criticized, constantly hated on. Doesn't matter what gets put out. People are just ready to shit all over Halo, right? So it's like constant shitting all over Halo. Halo Infinite, everyone, all the people who shit on Halo, they all get excited. Halo Infinite comes out, they just start shitting on it again. And I'm like, I'm just tired of this round. If something sucks that bad, I'd rather just not talk about it. Like, if I genuinely didn't like Halo or Halo Infinite or 4 or 5, I just wouldn't talk about it because I don't want to spend my time on it because it just sucks. But these people, you know, so I was just like, the narrative didn't change. Obviously, the game was delayed. We had three or 4 different creatives in the lead of Infinite. And of course I'm jumping around here. Bonnie eventually leaves. Joe Staten eventually leaves. Microsoft lays off basically everyone. Anyone you knew that worked on Halo Infinite was pretty much gone. Anyone from those behind the scenes trailers they put out, gone. Joe Staten, gone. Anyone you pretty much just knew was gone. I mean, people we still have there that we know: Brian Gerard, Forge Lord, still there. Obviously Alex was hired in pretty much as Infinite came out as like the writer. Jeff Easterling's there as a writer, but for the most part, any faces you saw in those documentaries, the developers, they're all gone. And for me, there's many compounding things. It was, okay, despite how much I love Infinite, the gaming industry has said that it's a failure, and people are shitting on 343, and it's reflected in 343 sales. It's reflected in Microsoft clearing out the studio. It's reflected in Bonnie leaving, Joe leaving. All that is just a lot of... It's really hard to take as... Probably harder on me than Josh because I am such a Halo deep-cut nerd that I'm just like... For the upteenth time, the industry has said 343 sucks and they failed. Even when I thought Infinite was just such a sweet entry into the series, like truly one of the better... Like up there with Bungie stuff for me. The industry is saying it sucks and 343 sucks, and so it's just like the same narrative. So I'm sick of the narrative. Feels like there's nothing they can do to win. And granted, 343 made a lot of mistakes. Never going to forgive them for promising split screen for years and then just canceling it. Never going to forget that. And there's a lot more than that. So they're definitely not blameless in any stretch of the imagination. But just like the constant negativity surrounding the franchise, the fact that 343 can do no right no matter what happens, and then the layoffs, to where now we're at a point where what is the future of Halo? The entire campaign team is gone. There's no future plans for Halo DLC, Halo story stuff, and basically there's just a skeleton crew there working on updates for the multiplayer, whether it be Battle Pass cosmetics or maps that are mostly made and forged by the community. That's where we're at now. Halo feels like it's on life support. It doesn't have a huge player base. I'm not saying it's an insignificant player base, but it's nothing to write home about. So while I loved Infinite and Josh loved Infinite, Halo Infinite and Halo as a franchise is just in this rough place. Like, there's just this dark cloud over Halo Infinite, or over Halo as a franchise totally. There's a dark cloud over it. And then you have this other element, which I know Josh can speak to, which is you have constant books coming out, and you have the TV show, and you have comics and action figures and all this stuff. And I know when I said this on Twitter, I got so much blowback, somewhat fair, somewhat not. People go, well, it's the books and the comics and the action figures aren't made by the same people who make the games, so why not let them give us all the action figures and all the books and all the comics they can, and then while they're developing games on the side. And I get that, but I do think there's a point where a franchise that me and Josh once loved for being this awesome video game has just become, on one hand, so much more, but it's up to the person if you think so much more is better. It's too much of a good thing when it's like oversaturation with books and comics and all this stuff, but you're not getting the actual game. And then when you do get the game, it doesn't finish the story from the last game, and it also expects you to have all this knowledge of the books, and it's just this big convoluted mess of how can you get people into this new when so much of it relies on, like, Halo's more of a book series and more of a lore universe than it is a video game anymore, and that just doesn't sit right with me, doesn't feel right with me or Josh especially. And then, to take matters even worse, people that worked at 343 that I talked to behind the scenes, one of them I talked to a lot, or several of them I talked to a lot, were on the campaign team. I talked to them after Infinite came out for, many months, and what I was told was the campaign team wasn't doing anything. They weren't working on DLC or a sequel, nothing. They were just sitting around twiddling their thumbs because Microsoft didn't know what they wanted to do next. Higher-ups didn't know what they wanted to do next. But they weren't doing anything campaign-related. We had 6 months after Infinite, people were talking about how they can't wait for the next DLC. Is it going to explore the Arbiter? Is it going to explore this? And I'm sitting over in the corner thinking, I'm talking to people at 343. They haven't even started pre-conceptualized ideas. There's no plans for DLC at all. Like, me and Josh knew way before they said no DLC, there was going to be no DLC. It was just a pipe dream. It was not real. No works on sequels. I was told that the story for Infinite, which I loved, was basically the campaign team didn't have much of any say in it. It was just like a little room with a couple people that, brainstormed the best way to continue the narrative without rebooting the universe in this kind of, there's a word for it, but I can't remember what it is. But it's like cycling everything through like a filter into how can we make the most interesting game without pissing off anyone kind of thing, without being too interesting, but without being too bland. And I don't know, just the whole aura of how things went about there. When I heard about development of the game just not being ready, obviously at all in 2020, but not even when it came out, the contractual labor of people coming in as a contract worker, taking 12 months to learn fully how to use the engine, working for 6 and then being laid off because they're a contract worker. They can only be 18 months. Hearing all this stuff from behind the scenes, another 343 developer told me to never, how did he put it? Never meet your heroes is what he told me, because of how awful it was to work at 343. How unfun it was, how disrespected he felt, this particular individual. That sucked to hear. Had somebody else tell me, here's one thing I hate to say this, I do, because something I would defend on Twitter all the time, and I really, really meant it, was, people would say, is Halo Infinite worth $60? Is it worth $60? And I would make tweets all the time. Yeah, of course it's worth $60. Are you kidding me? It's totally worth it. Like, great campaign, co-op, Forge, all this stuff. Oh, well, the Forge, or the multiplayer you can play for free. You don't have to pay for that. So what is the campaign worth $60? And I would make all these arguments. Of course it's worth $60. Of course it's worth $60. I had people at 343 tell me that they didn't think it was worth full price. People at 343. And, like, how can I forget that, right? Like, how you worked on the damn game and you don't think it's worth $60. Like, how am I to defend on Twitter and anywhere that, and to me it still is, like, I'd pay $300 for Infinite because I'm going to get that much replay value. But I know there's a lot of people that agree with me, but, like, people at their own studio saying that they didn't get to do what they wanted with the game. It had bigger ambitions. It was supposed to have more development time, and they don't think it's worth the money. All these things. So you got to think, for me and Josh, and maybe a little bit more me just because of how involved it was in Twitter, but, like, for me and Josh, years of toxic behavior, years of not only our obsession with Halo being too much, but the fans' obsession being too much. I mean, I never truly understood the depths of obsession until we did the podcast, because some people just literally live and breathe Halo in an unhealthy way. Josh or I can make a post about freaking Dune, and people would be like, and like how great the movie was or something, and people would be like, oh yeah, I wish that helicopter they flew around in was in Halo. And it'd be like, I put my head down right now, guys, you can't see me. I'm like, does every comment have to be about Halo? If I mention a cheeseburger, do you have to tell me that it's made with Moa meat? Like, that's the kind of people that we constantly interacted with, where they just don't think about anything other than Halo. But what games do you like other than Halo? And they'd be like, oh, I kind of like Metal Gear, but I'd really just Halo. It's like, no, there's nothing technically wrong with that, but it just, for me and Josh, it just seemed so unfathomable, because it's like, Josh and I love so many franchises and IPs, and we also like movies and music and books and whatever, and people would just be razor focused on Halo only. Just the obsession was so real. Or people, or what, and I get this is fair, but it still sucked. It'd be like, me and Josh put out an episode that was like, our top 10 movies, and we get a comment, oh, it's not about Halo, I'll skip this one, I'll listen to the next one. Like, oh, that just really kind of twisted the knife, because it's like...
Died inside.
Like, I get it.
I died.
I get it that you came to us for Halo news, and this isn't Halo news, but like, is there really... You have no interest in two people around your age talking about anything pop culture related? Like, you can't relate to us at all? Like, you don't think like a Star Wars or a Dark Knight or a Lord of the Rings or a Harry Potter that's on our movie list might be something you're interested in? Like, you literally just shut it down because it wasn't Halo? So you have the Halo, you have our obsession with Halo, you have the toxic behavior, you have the fans who are obsessed, you have the constant complaining, you have the hate on Twitter, you have 343 devs in the background saying, this sucked, that sucked, the game's not worth the money, we're not even working on campaign DLC or sequel, we don't even know what's going on. Then you have Microsoft laying off the studio, Bonnie leaving, Joe Staten leaving and going to Netflix, and then also you have a lot of people who aren't toxic and are good, genuine good Halo like fans that we interact with, who are just like, I hated Halo Infinite, it sucked. And it's like, that's fair, they're being respectful about it, but it was just like, oh, we're just in this endless cycle, aren't we?